Instead of food parcels, SASSA currently provides vouchers for social relief of distress. They are redeemable at selected service providers. However, in KwaZulu-Natal, these service providers had their food stocks looted and infrastructure vandalized during the past week's unrest, thereby halting this kind of service in that province. This has worsened the situation of vulnerable and the needy families who don't have a means of income and rely on government interventions. For more on this, we now speak to SASSA spokesperson Paseka Letsatsi. Paseka, a very good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to the agenda.
Good morning, Simpiwe, and thanks for having us.
Your food relief program resumes. Just take us through your plans at SASSA. How will this be rolled out?
Look, Simpiwe, I think what we would want to clarify is that we have a program in place to make sure that beneficiaries, especially those who are experiencing the undue hardship, get access to what we call social relief of distress. This is basically based on what happened in the past weeks and so on. We would want to make sure that people get the food vouchers. We have stopped using the food parcels Simpiwe for obvious reasons, but we can simply say the processes, especially even in KZN, our staff members, especially in KZN, worked very 24 hours around the clock to make sure that the processes of distribution, especially of the food vouchers, works. There was a problem at some point, but we can safely say we are able to enter in those areas and make sure that the food vouchers are distributed to the needy. But what we want to clarify, Simpiwe, is that there's a difference between a food voucher, which will be distributing for those who are experiencing hardship, and the 350, because we understand that people were confusing the difference between the two.
Okay, now when you when you make mention of the vouchers, will it not be abused? I mean, will these vouchers not be used for purposes other than that intended by SASSA?
Look, it is a decision which we had to make as management, Simpiwe, because remember, one, there was a very serious complaint about the food parcels, for an example. There was an indication that the food parcels are used because basically they got ice in a sense that they go to certain communities because of a preference and so on. And I think they also had some serious administrative problems and so on. So we took a decision as an organization that it is easy to give people vouchers so that they can be able to go to these stores and choose for themselves what is good for them and so on. We do not want to find ourselves choosing and so on. But obviously, the issue of distributing social relief of distress, especially in form of the food parcels, is now the sole responsibility of the Department of Social Development. And we think this program that we have engaged on as an organization will help those who are experiencing serious hardships, especially based on what happened in the past weeks.
Well, it's a good thing that SASSA is giving people the right to choose whatever food items they'll be throwing into their food basket. But the point I'm trying to make, Paseka, is that there is a danger that people will start picking items that fall outside the bracket of basic food essentials.
Yeah, that voucher, Simpiwe, you are right. It would not, for an example, allow you to go to a bottle store, for an example, just making an example, to go and buy alcohol. But we know, Simpiwe, that there was a very serious complaint that government is using the food parcels to advance the interest of certain communities and discriminating against certain communities. And especially now, Simpiwe, that we are approaching local government elections, we know that there'll be all sorts of complaints that there comes SASSA again using food parcels to distribute, or SASSA is in cahoots with certain councillors of a certain political party to distribute these food parcels. Hence, we came to indicate to the conclusion that it will be very much necessary to use the voucher system, which is very simple to administer, and it also gives a beneficiary that particular leverage to make a decision in terms of what they want to eat. We also don't want to appear simply as if we must dictate on people in terms of the food that they must eat. We understand the concern which you are raising, but we had to make that decision as an organization.
Now, which service providers can these vouchers be redeemable from?
They can go to the merchants, various merchants. They can go to Boxer, they can go to ShopRite. We know that some of the shops were destroyed and so on, but there are some supermarkets which are still operating, and we think beneficiaries can go to those particular supermarkets. But they are working very closely. We have established what we call crisis management committees in provinces, which are able to identify where people can go. There were problems in terms of the other supermarkets which were destroyed as in Pewe, but the crisis management committee is able to work very closely with the people affected to make sure that those who need access to the vouchers are able to be assisted very quickly.
So how do people access these crisis management committees?
The crisis management committees have got structures which they work with. We have can have pension committees on the ground. We can have councillors which they can interact with to find out what is happening in the community and so on. And that is why today our grants administration, together with our IT, they are trying to work out the modalities of making sure that we limit the person-to-person interaction because of the COVID-19. So we would be knowing by the end of this week or maybe next week to find out if the issue of electronic application works, so that we limit that interaction between people and so on. But the committees which have been established work very closely with the structures in our communities to make sure that they process people who need to make an application for this social relief of distress.
All right, Paseka Letsatsi, the spokesperson for SASSA, thank you so much for joining us.
It's a pleasure.